My family mocked me in court like I was invisible. They laughed, whispered, and tore my name apart, thinking I was powerless. But they didn't know I had something stronger than their lies. When the Marines saluted back, the entire courtroom froze. If you've ever been betrayed by your own blood, this shocking truth will hit home. They didn't say my name when I walked in. Didn't nod, didn't look, didn't blink. They just kept talking, like I wasn't even there, like the daughter they'd erased on paper had somehow followed them into the courtroom in dress blues and a steel spine. My father sat stiff in his chair, arms crossed like the verdict had already been decided. My mother wore that signature smirk, tight, shallow, polished for company. And Ethan, my younger brother, my parents' golden boy, sat with his fingers tapping a rhythm I knew too well, smug, nervous, rehearsed. Their lawyer adjusted his cufflinks, cleared his throat, and started dismantling my life. Miss Dempsey was absent for most family matters, emotionally detached, hostile at times. Her military career, while lengthy, often served as a tool to avoid personal responsibility. Her relationship with the deceased was strained, sporadic even. He said that last word like it was proof, like service and sacrifice could be weaponized against you when you stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you. I didn't respond. I kept my shoulders back, my jaw locked, my gaze forward. I didn't flinch when my mother leaned in to whisper something to Ethan that made him laugh beneath his breath. I didn't react when their lawyer held up a framed photo of Samuel Dempsey with them, smiling at a barbecue I'd never been invited to. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought I came here empty-handed, still wounded from being left out of the funeral, the will, the family. They had no idea. What they saw in that courtroom wasn't a woman hoping for their acceptance. It was a Marine, trained to survive, wired to observe, and built to strike only when it counted. I'd already done the math. I knew what they were after: the house, the land, the military pension, the estate holdings. I saw the debt in Ethan's eyes, the fear behind my father's anger, the desperation hidden beneath my mother's lipstick and pearls. This wasn't about grief. It was about money and control and pride. And they thought I wouldn't fight. But they underestimated what years of silence can teach you. They didn't hear the late-night calls I never got while I was deployed. Didn't feel the chill of returning home in uniform to find an empty driveway, no porch light on. Didn't know what it's like to bury the only person who believed in you and read your name missing from the eulogy. So no, I didn't speak up when they painted me as a ghost, because ghosts don't need introductions. They haunt, they watch, and they return, exactly when the living least expect them. The judge sat quietly, watching, measuring. She didn't interrupt their performance, and I didn't either, because I wasn't here to convince anyone. I was here to end it. And the moment I reached into my briefcase, the room began to shift. Just a flicker, a tremor in the atmosphere. As if somewhere, deep in the bones of that courtroom, the walls could feel it. That something was coming. And this time, I wasn't alone. They tried to bury the truth beneath forged signatures and polished lies. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't predict, was what I pulled from that briefcase. And when the salute came, it didn't just stop the courtroom cold. It shattered everything they thought they could take from me. They buried him on a Thursday. Closed casket. No military rites. No flag. They said it was what he would have wanted. But I knew that was a lie. What my grandfather wanted was to be honored, for the battles no one saw, for the silence he carried like a metal heavier than any bronze or gold. And what he deserved was one final salute. He didn't get it, because I wasn't invited. The obituary listed every living relative except me. I found out about the funeral through a friend of his. Not through a call, not a letter, not even a damn text. Just a voicemail. I thought you'd be there today. I sat in a parking lot 3 towns over, still in uniform, staring at that message as the service ended without me. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't afford to shatter. Not then. Not alone. He used to say, "Quiet is where the real work gets done." I believed him. And I followed that path. Quiet strength. Quiet sacrifice. Quiet loyalty. But what no one tells you is that sometimes, if you stay quiet long enough, people start believing you were never there at all. After the burial, things moved fast. They emptied his house within 48 hours, sold the car, changed the locks, redid the paperwork. His will, the one I'd seen with my own eyes, the one he'd had notarized, signed beside me at that wooden kitchen table, gone. Replaced by something colder, something cleaner, something that conveniently excluded me. When I called the estate lawyer to ask about the pension, he paused too long, then said, "Your name isn't on file." I asked him to check again. He didn't. He just hung up. They weren't just burying a man, they were burying a legacy. And to do that, they had to erase the one person who knew who he really was. My grandfather wasn't some forgetful old man they could manipulate. He was sharp until the end. Sharp enough to tell me, in his final months, if they try to cut you out, it means you're the only one who ever mattered. Those words burned now. I drove out to the old property just once before they sold it off. The porch light was already removed. The American flag I'd given him after my second deployment, gone. In its place, a tacky real estate sign and a fresh coat of beige paint to hide the decades written into the walls. Inside, I found the kitchen gutted, but the drawer next to the stove still there. And in it, folded neatly in a manila envelope, was a photocopy. Not a legal document, not notarized, but his handwriting. A note addressed to me. "They'll come for what I left you. Don't let them have it." That's when I knew this wasn't grief. It was war. And I had the one thing they didn't expect: proof, history, and a plan they'd never see coming. When I left that house, I didn't slam the door. I closed it like he would have. Soft, controlled, final. Because when you know what's coming, you don't need to raise your voice. You just need to aim it right. The courtroom thought it, knew the story: estranged granddaughter, military burnout, no claim to anything. But beneath that silence, I carried something they didn't calculate. And when I opened that briefcase and handed the file to the judge, it wasn't just paper. It was fire. And it was finally time to burn. The file wasn't just altered. It was built to erase me. Not sloppily either. This wasn't some last-minute hack job. It was layered, calculated, clean enough to pass legal eyes that weren't looking too hard. Every initial, every timestamp, every witness name had been perfectly placed, except one: mine. The copy I found in that drawer was real: his handwriting, his tone, the phrasing he always used when talking about what mattered. He left everything to me: the house, the land, his Navy pension. But the version submitted to probate court told a different story. In that one, I was never born. The language was sterile, like a corporate memo. It named my uncle and his wife as sole beneficiaries, people who hadn't visited in a decade, who once told my grandfather to get with the times when he refused to sell the farm to developers. Now suddenly, they were his only trusted heirs. I wasn't just cut out. I was scrubbed. I sat in my car outside the county records office, document in one hand, cold coffee in the other, staring at the discrepancy like it had teeth. Because it did. That paper wasn't just a lie, it was a weapon. And someone had used it long before I even realized I was under attack. So I started digging. Quietly, carefully, like I'd been trained to. I called in a favor, just one, from a former JAG attorney I'd served with in Afghanistan. He owed me his life, and I never called it in, until now. I didn't need him to fight. I just needed him to verify something the court missed. It didn't take him long. The notary who signed this, he said, retired 5 years before this document was dated. Moved out of state. I just spoke to his daughter. He passed away last winter. That was the first thread. The second came from the bank. A notarized transfer of property filed 2 days after my grandfather's supposed final will was signed. But the signature used on the deed, it matched my uncle's, not my grandfather's. A rushed copy-paste job disguised in legalese. And just like that, the whole thing cracked. This wasn't just a family squabble over property. This was fraud. Intentional. Documented. And if I'd let it go, they would have gotten away with it. Clean. The worst part, they were confident. Too confident. My aunt posted a photo online, smiling in front of the house, wine glass in hand, captioned "New Beginnings," as if the man who raised me was nothing more than a stepping stone in their real estate portfolio. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I printed the photos, collected timestamps. I built a file, tight, complete, irrefutable. 1 inch of paper thick, heavy enough to make a gavel shake. Because when the setup's that clean, you don't confront it with noise, you confront it with evidence. And as I walked into that courtroom, boots polished, spine straight, my grandfather's dog tags under my collar, I didn't plan to speak. I planned to unload. The judge was mid-sentence when the back doors opened. Uniforms. Marched in, 12 of them. Not called, not summoned, just there. And when every Marine in that room raised their hands and saluted me, the silence that followed didn't just break the room, it changed the entire trajectory of what came next. They thought silence meant surrender. I let them talk. People like that, arrogant, entitled, can't help themselves. Give them space, and they'll self-destruct. Mason leaned in to whisper, not discreetly. Lisa flashed her fake pearls like armor. They laughed between motions, joked when the judge stepped out, smirked when I didn't react. She's unstable, Mason muttered. Lisa followed, always was, even before she left. My lawyer waited for a response. I gave none, just stillness. Because this wasn't a shouting match. It was war in disguise. And silence was my best weapon. While they played courtroom theater, I watched. I counted Mason's ticks whenever the will was mentioned, noticed Lisa hiding her hand, the same hand now wearing the antique family ring that mysteriously vanished before my grandfather died. They thought I was passive. I was just watching, letting the courtroom see their arrogance, their mockery, letting them hang themselves with their own words. Then the judge returned. The defense began their speech, painting me as emotional, unfit. Mason reclined, confident. Lisa smiled like she already won. That's when I slid the file across the table, photo by photo, each time-stamped, each paired with transfers, fake signatures, bank logs. And then, security footage. Lisa signing under a false name, Mason behind her, counting envelopes of cash. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The file did everything for me. The judge leaned forward, voice clipped. Is this authentic? The clerk confirmed, twice. Mason stopped smiling. Lisa looked down, finally. I turned to them. Once. No triumph, no rage, just precision, like a scalpel cutting open the truth. Because the moment they mocked my silence was the moment they handed me the win. The judge's eyes lingered. Anything else the court should see. I pulled out one last sealed file, untouched until now. The opposing lawyer visibly stiffened. Mason's jaw locked. Lisa stopped blinking. And in that stillness, her whisper cracked through the room. She knew. The whole time. The courtroom felt colder after the silence hit, not physically. The air conditioning hadn't changed, but the energy had all their noise, all their mocking, all their practiced lies collapsed. The second I handed over that last sealed file inside the forensic audit, not just proof of forged documents, but evidence of where the money went, transfer signatures, offshore accounts, and the name of one man Mason swore he hadn't spoken to since Dad's funeral. His voice on tape said otherwise. The judge didn't flinch. But the room did. My hands didn't shake. I expected them to. But after everything, the weight was no longer mine. It had shifted from my chest to theirs. I was just the one opening the final door and letting the light in. Lisa gripped the bench like it might save her. Mason's lawyer asked for a recess. Denied. The court clerk looked at me with something close to pity or maybe respect. I didn't look back, because this wasn't about revenge, and it was never about pity. It was about truth. Sharp, heavy, and quiet. The judge read the final ruling slowly, clean, crisp, devastating all claims against me. Dismissed the trust reinstated in my name. Immediate forfeiture of misused funds, a full federal investigation into financial abuse of a vulnerable adult Mason. Finally spoke then, but not to me. He turned to Lisa, voice low and shaking, and asked, "What did you do?" She didn't answer because there was nothing left to say. I stood when the gavel dropped. No celebration, no tears. I simply walked toward the exit, and that was when it happened. A man in uniform, one of the officers from the back row, rose and gave a sharp salute. Not for show, not out of pity, but out of recognition. Recognition of a woman who didn't break when they tried to erase her recognition of someone who fought a war. Most people never see, and won it without firing a single shot. That moment didn't make headlines, but it made history for me, because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits, and then it strikes exactly where it hurts most. They thought taking my name off a document could erase the truth, that silencing my voice in court could silence everything I stood for. But they forgot one thing. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs time. Time to rise. Time to gather strength. Time to stand on its own. And when it does, when justice finally breathes, it doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door down. That day in court wasn't just about a trust fund or a property line. It was about reclaiming something far more sacred: dignity, legacy, and the voice they tried to bury. I didn't win by fighting louder. I won by refusing to play their game, by watching, listening, preparing, by letting the weight of the truth do the talking. The moment that gavel fell, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Free from their narratives, their manipulation, their need to make me small. And when that Marine saluted me, it wasn't just for my service. It was for every silent battle I'd fought alone, and for every person watching who's been told their silence means weakness. It doesn't. Sometimes it means power waiting for the right moment. Silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not react right away, but observe, collect truth, and act when it counts. If you're facing injustice or betrayal, don't rush to shout your truth. Prepare it, protect it. And when you finally release it, let it be undeniable. Let it be enough to stand on its own. Have you ever stayed silent in a situation where you could have fought back, but chose to wait instead? What happened? Drop your story in the comments below. You never know who needs to hear your strength today. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own quiet power, consider subscribing. Because on this channel, we don't just tell stories, we reclaim them. One click might be small, but your support tells us these stories matter, and that keeps us going. Thanks for hearing what most chose to ignore. The truth needed someone to witness it, and that someone was you.